How I completely transformed my body in only 90 days, the full guide, after 6 years of doing the right things in the wrong order. This is the raw, unfiltered, step-by-step breakdown of exactly what I did, how I broke out of the cycle of disappointing progress, sabotaging momentum, and finally built a system that produced predictable results instead of guesswork and wasted hours in the gym. Hey guys, I'm Yip, and in this training I'm going to walk you through how I rebuilt my physique by fixing the order of operations, not by training harder, eating recklessly, or relying on motivation. I'll show you how I restored insulin sensitivity, stopped wasting long training phases, and finally started getting rewarded for the work I was already putting in. And no dirty bulks, no emotional decisions, no just trust the process nonsense. If you're a man who regularly lifts weights, tracks your progress, and knows you should look further along by now, if you're tired of putting in years of effort only to feel like your results don't match the work, and if you're done guessing, restarting, or blaming genetics for something that's actually fixable, then this training will show you exactly why that keeps happening and what actually needs to change for progress to become inevitable. You're probably thinking, who the fuck is this guy and why is he making this video? And I want to take a step back for a second and give you some background info. Because the truth is this wasn't always easy for me to talk about. For a long time, from the outside, it looked like I was doing everything right. I trained consistently, I tracked my lifts, I cared about my nutrition, I wasn't lazy, I wasn't inconsistent, but inside I was frustrated. Because no matter how much effort I put in, my results never seemed to reflect the work. And that disconnect slowly starts messing with your head. You start wondering if you're missing something obvious, you're just not built for this, or this is not it, or this is as good as it gets. That feeling of doing everything and still falling short is the reason I'm making this video. So you can stop wasting time and energy and finally, in a few months from now, look in the mirror and see progress you're genuinely proud of. This seriously changed everything for me. The cycle I couldn't break. What made it even more frustrating was that I thought I was doing everything right. Whenever progress slowed, I tell myself, all right, it's time to build. So I get into a bulk. Not a structured off-season, but just a bulk. Calories up, structure looser, standard softer. At first, the skill went up, strength went up a bit, but so did my body fat, as you can see here in the picture over here. I'd get slower, softer, and less confident. And deep down, I knew I wasn't building as much muscle as I should have been. So, I do what everybody does. I cut down, as you can see here. I diet down, clean things up, get leaner again. I get into the momentum, start making like progress and feeling like, okay, I'm doing this. But then only to realize that the physique underneath hadn't changed that much. You can see it. It's not that big of a difference, just a bit less body fat. Then I look at myself and think, all right, I need to bulk again. And the whole thing would go on repeat, as you see in this picture. Bulk, get fat, cut, reveal not much progress, and then bulk again, same outcome. I wasn't regressing, but I was barely moving forward. Months of effort just to look slightly different, years passing without ever feeling like I nailed it. That cycle is brutal because you're always doing something, but never building momentum. And at the time, I didn't know why it kept happening. I just knew I was stuck. Once I noticed this pattern, I knew something had to change. What finally clicked for me wasn't a new workout or a better split or eating even more food. It was a pattern. Every time things started going well, strength going up, physique tightening, momentum building, something would stall. Not randomly, but predictably. I'd second guess what I was doing, change things too quickly, push when I should have held, or try to force progress instead of letting it compound. You need to have patience. And that's when it hit me. I wasn't doing the wrong things. I was doing the right things in the wrong order. Trying harder was actually making it worse. My instinct was always the same. If progress slowed, I'd do more. More volume, more food, more intensity. Because that's what you're told to do, right? But every time I tried to force progress, I just dig myself into a deeper hole. Recovery suffered, body composition got worse, and momentum disappeared faster. That's when I realized something uncomfortable. Effort wasn't my problem, and no amount of hard work can compensate for not doing things optimally. Before we go any further, if you're still here, I want to be very clear about something. This isn't a motivational video, and it's not entertainment either. What I'm about to break down only works if you understand the full picture. Not half of it, not parts you like, not the parts that confirm what you already believe. Because the exact reason most guys stay stuck is because they cherry pick advice and then wonder why nothing changes. So if you're watching this while scrolling or planning to come back later, take a second, pause. Give this your full attention. Not because I want your time, but because this only works when you see how the pieces fit together. It would honestly feel selfish to keep this to myself. I tried everything, different coaches, splits, diets, supplements, all trying to force answers that weren't there. And it wasn't until I implemented what I'm about to break down that everything finally clicked. But I'll also be clear. If you're not ready to take this seriously, if you're not willing to do what it actually takes to compress 6+ years of trial and error into a focused 8 to 12 months, that's completely fine. This is just not for you. You can click off now. This is for you. This is for you if you already train consistently. You track your lifts and actually care about progression. You're frustrated because the results don't match the effort, and you're done guessing, restarting, or trying different tactics, hoping it fixes everything. You don't need motivation to put in the work. You want clarity, structure, and a proven system that actually works and shortens the timeline. Now, this is not for you if you're just looking for a shortcut. You want hype instead of precision. You just want something fun and don't care about making a crazy transformation, or you'd rather protect your ego than take a step back and do things properly. This process rewards discipline and restraint, not chasing trends or going through the motions just to feel productive. If you're ready to operate with intention, take pride in doing things properly, and build a physique that quietly speaks for itself when you walk into the gym, then you're in the right place. This is the system that changed my whole philosophy. Once I stopped guessing, I realized progress wasn't about adding more. It was about sequencing the right things at the right time for the right reason. I took what finally worked for me, optimized it, and have now broken it down into 4 clear phases. Not random steps, not things you mix and match, a sequence. Each phase solves a specific problem, and skipping one is exactly why most guys stall, regress, or spin their wheels for years. Now here's the framework. Phase 1, fix the foundation, where you stop fighting your body and start creating the conditions for progress. Phase 2, restore control, where momentum stops disappearing and consistency becomes predictable. Phase 3, build properly, where effort finally turns into visible results without sacrificing leanness. Phase 4, sustain it, where progress stops feeling fragile and starts feeling normal. Nothing fancy, nothing trendy, just the right order. Let's get into it. Phase 1, insulin optimization. Stop fighting your body, build the conditions for progress. This phase isn't about eating less. It's about fixing how your body handles food. Because insulin sensitivity determines one critical thing. When you eat, does the energy get stored as muscle or does it get pushed straight into body fat? For years, I thought my problem was calories or macros or effort. But the real issue was that my body had become insufficient at using fuel. I wasn't bad at bulking, my body just wasn't in a state where bulking made sense. Until this was fixed, adding more food only made me softer. Fix the conditions before you try to grow. This wasn't about doing more, this was about stopping the fight with my own body. For years I was trying to build muscle on top of poor recovery, inconsistent intake, and constant fatigue. Once I fixed the conditions first, everything else finally started working. The shift. I stopped asking, how fast can I grow? And started asking, what needs to be stable before growth even makes sense? That single question changed how I approached everything. What actually needed to be stable. Before I worried about size, I needed predictable hunger. consistent energy, repeatable training weeks, a body that responded to food again. Without those, any progress was temporary. Now, the two outcomes I cared about. I only tracked two things to start. Can I execute this even on a bad week? And does my body respond consistently to the same inputs? If both were true, I knew I was on the right path. And the second one is very important because most guys, what they do is they make a plan. And before they even take the time to let their body process and actually get used to it, they already start changing it. So take your time. The order I followed, no guessing. I didn't tweak everything at once. I set things up in this order: calories plus protein, daily movement, training schedule, 2 weeks of zero changes, like I just said, review trends, adjust one variable only if needed. That's it. No chaos. Now, this is what replaced guesswork for me. At some point, I realized something important. I wasn't failing because I lacked effort. I was failing because I was relying on memory, emotions, and vibes. So I built a single place where everything lived. Calories, macros, steps, training frequency, cardio, time horizon, supplements, you name it, it's all in one place. Nothing lived in my head anymore. If it wasn't written here, it didn't exist. If it didn't exist, I didn't make decisions based on it. This alone removed 80% of the chaos. But this is how I stopped lying to myself. This dashboard did three things for me. It made progress measurable, it made mistakes obvious, and it removed emotional decision making. I wasn't asking, do I feel like it's working? I was asking, what does the data actually say? This shift alone changed how seriously I took the process. Why calories never worked for me before. Here's the mistake I made for years. I treated calories like a math problem. If I ate more, I should grow. If I ate less, I should get lean. On paper, that makes sense, but in reality, calories only work after your body is responsive. When insulin sensitivity is poor, carbs get stored insufficiently, hunger signals are louder, energy crashes are more frequent, fat gain happens faster than muscle gain. So, I wasn't failing because I picked the wrong numbers. I was failing because my body wasn't in a state to use the numbers properly. That's why this phase starts before we talk about growth, before we talk about surpluses, and before we talk about optimization. Calories only matter once your body can respond predictably to them. That's what this phase fixes. Calories, where I started and why this works. Now, I didn't pick a calorie number randomly. I needed a starting point that was close enough to reality, conservative enough to avoid overshooting, and stable enough to give me a clean signal. So I used this. There's this website called caloriecalculator.net, and if you type in calculate my calories, you find it, calculator.net. It's amazing. Now, here's why it works. For most trained men, this range sits close to the true maintenance when activity is consistent. Not because it's magic, but because it assumes moderate training volume, daily movement, no extreme surplus or deficit. The goal here wasn't fat loss or growth. The goal was responsiveness. If your body can't respond predictably here, it won't respond predictably anywhere else. So, go to caloriecalculator.net and find out what your maintenance calories are. And be very honest about the questions they ask to fill in: your weight, your height, your activity. Be very honest about it, and you'll find often a very perfect number there. Why this was never forever. This number wasn't a commitment. It was a diagnostic tool. I wasn't asking, is this perfect? I was asking, how does my body behave when inputs are stable? Calories only became meaningful after consistency is established. So we first want to find our maintenance. What this first phase is actually for. These first 2 weeks aren't about fat loss. They were about diagnostic. I needed to find my true maintenance. The calories levels where my body wasn't gaining or losing weight. Energy was stable and hunger was predictable. That's how you remove noise. Once weight was stable and inputs were consistent, then a calorie deficit actually meant something. Only after that stability was established did I move into a fat loss phase. Now, how I actually dieted without burning out. And keep in mind that this is after the 2 weeks of maintenance where we find the true maintenance. And that 2 weeks is if it goes perfect in once. If you pick the number and it's not at your maintenance, then you need a bit more time. But we want at least 2 weeks of being in the maintenance before we start this phase. Now, this is where most people get it wrong. They diet by starting conservative, then panicking and cutting harder when progress slows. Now, I did the opposite. When motivation was high and hunger was still manageable, I started with a larger deficit. As body fat came down and training demands increased, I slowly tapered up the calories, mainly through carbs. Not to stop fat loss, but to control the rate of loss while preserving performance. Now, this does two things. It keeps training output higher as you get leaner. It prevents the crash that actually ends diets early. Now, the goal wasn't suffering, the goal was getting lean while keeping the body responsive, so growth actually works later. Why this matters long term. This phase isn't just about getting lean, it's about putting your body in the best possible state to grow after the cut. That's why this flows directly into reverse control and a proper off-season instead of another bulk cut loop. Protein, the anchor variable. Protein was the only thing I refused to negotiate. Target 2.2 grams per kilo of body weight. So that's about 1 gram per pound of body weight. Now you can go up with 2.6 or a bit lower, for example, 2 per kilo of body weight, but you should be aiming around that range. Not because higher is always better, but because protein solves multiple problems at once. It preserves lean mass, stabilizes hunger, improves recovery, reduces decision fatigue, and if protein drifted, everything else became harder. More hunger, worse sessions, lower adherence. Protein isn't just a macro, it's a behavioral anchor. And if too high, it ruins digestion. So this is the sweet spot. Why protein comes first always. If calories are the steering wheel, protein is the seatbelt. You can still crash without it. I made protein the first thing I planned, the first thing I tracked, and the first thing I fixed if something felt off. Everything else was secondary. Carbs and fats, the control variables. I didn't treat carbs and fats as enemies. I treated them as control dials. The rule is simple. Protein stays fixed, calories stay fixed, carbs and fats flexed based on feedback. For mostly carbs. So fats we can adjust a bit, but we don't want to adjust them too much. We mostly adjust carbs. Now, if training performance dipped, carbs likely too low. If hunger was aggressive, fats, fiber, or food quality were off, but never adjusted based on one bad day, only after a pattern showed up. Like I keep saying, patience, take your time. Why avoided macro obsession? Most guys don't fail because they don't know what their macros. They fail because they change them too often, they react emotionally, and they never let patterns emerge. Simplicity isn't laziness, it's how you get clean data. How I built meals without overthinking. I didn't meal plan, I standardized decisions. Each meal followed the same structure. Protein, carbs or fats, and then volume. This wasn't about optimization, it was about automaticity. Once meals followed a predictable structure, you stopped negotiating with yourself. Now, why I stopped eating flexibly. I actually found the opposite of what most people recommend. Eating different foods every day didn't give me freedom. It created noise. More food focus, more decision fatigue, less predictable digestion. Once I locked in the same meals each day, hunger stabilized, digestion improved, and execution became automatic. For this phase, repetitions wasn't restrictive. It was about removing friction and letting the system work. So, for example, think you're like, if you're just following, if it fits your macros, you're constantly thinking, what do I want to have next? What's my next meal going to be? I feel like I could have some oats, or maybe can have some protein pancakes. Oh, I do feel like sweet, maybe chocolate. It's not super good, but I'll make it fit in my macros. And then, boom, you're eating bad food. That's not good for you and will ruin your progress. And then you had the chocolate. Oh, after some chocolate, I'm still hungry. Didn't fill me up. Oh, I'll have a little bit more, and boom, you went completely off your diet. If you have the same meals every day, it completely removes decision fatigue, and you just know what your body is going to get. Also, your body gets used to the same meals at the same times. It gets hungry at the same times, and you completely remove that constant food noise. Now, super important though is you do have to enjoy your meals if you eat them every single day. It needs to be stuff you like eating, so you will stick to it. So what can we do? Low calorie flavor equals adherence insurance. Now, this sounds trivial, but it isn't. Bland food increases perceived restriction. Perceived restriction leads to rebellion. So I always kept mustard, salsa, pickles, spices, hot sauce, low calorie sauces, and 0 calorie drinks with moderation, because too much 0 calorie drinks or low calorie sauces can mess up digestion a bit. So look what you can digest well, and then you can put it in. Now, this isn't about cheating, it's about removing unnecessary friction. What I did about cheat meals and why. I removed cheat days completely. Not because flexibility is bad, but because cheat days distort appetite signals, spike water retention, create guilt cycles, and turn one meal into a weekend. Instead, I use planned flexibility. 1 meal per week. For some people, you can do 2 meals per week, but 1 meal is often the sweet spot. That is chosen ahead of time and still respected the bigger picture. No chaos, no starting over on Monday. So it's a planned refeed or blend cheat meal, how you can call it, that still fits within your goal. So for example, we use calorie banking, or which means is you eat on that day where you're going to have the cheat meal, you remove a meal where you have a little bit extra calories left, so it still fits in your bigger picture. And also smart choices, like you can have a burger with some fries or some sushi. If you're eating a ginormous 5-person pizza, that will ruin stuff. So smart decisions still. Daily steps, the metabolic base. Quick tea break. Now, steps became my foundation because they improve insulin sensitivity, increase daily energy expenditure, don't tax recovery, and scale week to week. Also, they super improve digestion. Now, steps work quietly, and quiet consistency beats heroic effort. How is that my step target? I didn't aim for impressive, I aimed for repeatable. A number I could hit on busy days, on low energy days, without needing motivation, because the best step target is the one you can actually do every single day. So I also made smart decisions. For example, going to work, I would, instead of a certain part, you could take the bus or you could walk, which would take about the same time to get there. I chose to walk to get some steps in. Or, for example, going to the gym. Instead of going on a bike or, for example, going with the car, I would walk there if it's not too far away. It would still often take similar times if it's not too far away, but you get your steps in. Cardio, a lever, not a crutch. I didn't start with cardio, I earned it. Cardio only came in when steps were consistent, food was consistent, and weight trends stalled for 10 to 14 days. If cardio feels like punishment, it compensates for something else. Now, at some point, we do always add in a little bit of cardio, not too much. Light cardio, where we want our pulse to be about 110 to 120 beats per minute for, let's say, start at 10 minutes, a couple times per week. You can increase it slowly because, of course, cardio is good for our heart health and our general health. Especially fasted in the morning, improves insulin sensitivity, amazing. But like I said, it shouldn't be a punishment. A lot of guys, after they go have a cheat meal or they go off their plan, they punish themselves by doing an hour-long hard cardio session. But that actually just creates a mental framework that allows you to get away with it. Like, oh, I did it one time, but I did my cardio, so I can do it again. It fixes everything, which it doesn't, because it completely destroys your insulin sensitivity. It completely ruins your digestion. You get stuck in a mental cycle that's not healthy and dopamine triggers that are not healthy. So we only add in cardio for the right reasons. Training, the real objective. Training wasn't about destroying myself, it was about maintaining strength, reinforcing good movement, and sending a growth signal. staying recovered enough to repeat it. If I couldn't repeat sessions weekly, I pulled back. So you start with lower volume and only slowly increase volume or intensity if your body allows it. Take one step back to take 2 steps forward. Training frequency that actually works. Most weeks landed at 4 to 5 sessions. Not because more wouldn't work, but because recovery dictates progress. On a busy week, 4 sessions, or with good recovery, 5 sessions. Sustainable always beats optimal. And also with this, I listened to my body. If I got sick, I did a session less. If I wasn't feeling great, a session less. If you're not able to recover from your sessions, you're not progressing. Recovery is everything. Rep ranges. Why I stopped chasing them. I locked these in deliberately. Compounds, 6 to 10. Secondaries, 8 to 12 reps. And accessories, 12 to 20 reps. Rep ranges balance mechanical tension, joint stress, and progression clarity. Constantly changing exercises kills feedback. Rest times, output over fatigue. Compounds, 3 to 4 minutes, accessories, 60 to 120 seconds. In general, I would stay always around the 3-minute mark, sometimes 4-minute mark, dependent on my sessions. But keep them stable and every session, because shorter rest doesn't equal harder work. It usually just means worse output and less progress over time. Progression, how I removed ego. Progress wasn't forced. If reps were clean and strength held, I stayed put. If I hit the top of a rep range across all sets, I added a small amount next time. No grinders, no PR hunting. Progress was earned, not chased. The 2-week no change rule. For the first 2 weeks, calories unchanged, protein unchanged, steps unchanged, training unchanged. No reaction to daily skill noise. I wasn't dieting, I was observing. What I tracked daily on purpose. I tracked morning body weight, steps, protein, if I hit my protein or miss it, training yes or no, and sleep hours. That's it. Data equals more clarity. The more data you have, the better decisions you can make. Weekly check-in, where intelligence lives. Once per week, I reviewed 7-day average weight. So every single day I check my weight. What's the average over the last 7 days? That way we know if we're actually making progress, because your weight changes on a daily. You had a little bit more water that day. You're a bit more stressed. You're holding a bit more water. You're constipated, for example, or your digestion is not amazing. Your weight fluctuates over the week all the time. We want the weekly average. For 2 weeks, do we see a trend? And then we make changes. So photos in the same light. Progress photos. These are way more important than your body weight itself. Most people completely obsess over body weight. For example, they're cutting and their weight is not changing. But what is your body actually looking like? So you might not see it as changes in scale weight, but are you getting leaner? Okay, good. That means we're recomping. And then if you would then drop the calories down even more when it's not necessary. So progress photos, essential. Once a week, in the same light, in the same spot, same poses. Training trends, execution, and then honesty about it. Weekly trends over daily emotions. How I adjusted without panicking. Decision logic. If weight and waist moving, do nothing. If nothing moves, add 2,000 steps. If still nothing, reduce calories by 150 to 200 calories. But one lever at a time. Then wait. No stacking changes. So let's say you would see no change in the skill and you lowered your calories to 200 and added 2,000 steps at the same time. Then you're making too many changes at once and you might overshoot. So one change at a time. When I refused to adjust, I didn't change anything if weekends were sloppy, steps were inconsistent, protein wasn't hit, sleep was poor. Fix behavior before changing inputs. Okay? If you're not, if you didn't follow the plan perfectly, or something happened, you were sick, I don't know, you're moving, you had a birthday, whatever, then that will not truly reflect the results of data, because you didn't follow the plan. If it was not executed perfectly, we don't change. Hunger, a signal, not a flaw. When hunger spiked, I checked protein consistency, meal volume, sleep, hydration, and meal timing. Hunger usually points to a mismatch, not a lack of discipline. Busy week protocol. When life gets chaotic, workout shortened, meal simplified, step stayed, protein stayed. I adjusted the plan. I didn't abandon the system because life always happens. Quick tea break. I'm getting quite thirsty. Stay hydrated, guys. Got this big bad boy over here. Keep me hydrated. Supplements. What actually helped? The essentials. Whey, if needed. Creatine, the most researched supplement in the world. Vitamin D, omega-3s, and magnesium. Now, these aren't nice to haves. These are the baseline. If these aren't in place, anything else is just noise. Now, that said, it doesn't mean I never use other supplements. I do. Beyond the essentials, everything becomes situational. Now, it depends on the phase you're in, recovery demands, stress levels, training volume, and the specific goal at a time. Also, of course, hormonal levels. Those tools can be useful, but only when the foundation is already solid. Supplements don't fix problems, they support systems that are already working. Sleep, the hidden accelerator. When sleep dropped, hunger rose, recovery fell, training quality dipped. I focused on consistent bedtimes, a dark, cool room, caffeine earlier in the day. Not perfect, but consistent. Now, of course, going back on the supplements, if needed, for example, you can take some melatonin, magnesium glycinate or biglycinate, some GABA, but sleep is honestly one of the most important things. If you had a horrible night of sleep, I would honestly suggest you skip a training session and recover. Then you just go for it. Sleep is so trivial. How I knew this was done. I knew I was ready to move forward when my body responded predictably. Hunger was manageable, routines felt automatic, and nothing felt fragile. That's when growth finally made sense. Winners think 5 steps ahead. For years, I treated everything like one long blur. Cut harder, push more, hope it works. That's why nothing stuck. This timeline forced me to respect phases. Cut, reverse phase, lean build. Each phase had a job. Each phase earned the next. This is what stopped me from wasting off seasons and sabotaging progress by being impatient. As you can see here, part of the dashboard, we have a time frame. Also, this makes things a lot more oversightful. I mean, if you're thinking about, okay, I'm going to have a 20-week off season to grow. Sounds like a long time. But when you see the weeks ticking by, it actually goes very quick and makes you realize like, okay, every single week is important. Using a time frame and setting goals is a game changer, guys. Now, progress isn't linear, but it is predictable. When I stopped asking how fast can I change and started asking what does my body actually need next, everything became calmer. No panic adjustments, no emotional pivots, no burning phases early. This is how progress stopped feeling fragile. The 5 things that actually mattered. If you remember nothing else, number 1, protein anchors is everything. Steps do more than cardio. Training must be repeatable. Don't adjust things too fast. And consistency beats intensity. That's the methodology. Now, why getting lean wasn't the goal? At this point, something important needs to be clear. Getting lean was never the end goal. It was the entry requirement. For the first time, my body was predictable. Hunger made sense, training felt repeatable, food stopped feeling chaotic. And that's the part most people miss. They think getting lean was just about aesthetics, about abs, about being done. But leanness, when done properly, does something much more important. It restores insulin sensitivity, it improves nutrient partitioning, and it teaches your body how to respond to food again. That's why every time I tried to grow before this phase, I just got softer instead of bigger. I wasn't in a position to build yet. I was just adding calories to a system that wasn't ready to handle them. This phase wasn't about being shredded, it's about fixing the conditions so that when I did add fuel, it would actually go where I wanted it to go. That's what made the next phase work. Phase 2, reverse control. Make your body predictable again, so momentum stops disappearing. Why you don't bulk until you've earned it. This is where most guys mess up everything. They get impatient, they finally feel lean, and immediately think, all right, time to bulk. Also, probably hunger is very high, so they start shoveling down everything. That mindset is exactly why their past growth phases fail. Because muscle isn't built by eating more. Muscle is built when your body is sensitive to nutrients, recovery is high, and calories are actually partitioned towards muscle tissue instead of fat. That's why getting lean first matters. Not stage lean, not miserable, but lean enough that your body is responsive again. If you skip that step, every surplus becomes sloppy. Hunger becomes aggressive, fat gain outpaces muscle gain. And then you're right back where you started, cutting again, undoing your own work. This phase only works because phase 1 and phase 2 came before it. Leanness isn't the enemy of growth. It's the foundation of it. Once I understood that, I stopped bulking and started building. What this part actually solves. This is the step most guys skip. They get leaner and immediately lose control. Not because they're weak, because they don't have a system for the rebound period. The goal here is simple. Stabilize your body, your hunger, and your routine before you ever try to push growth. If this part misses, every bulk becomes disguised as fat gain phase. The biggest misunderstanding. Most people think this part is eating more. It's not. It's earning stability at higher calories without chaos. If you increase calories but you lose structure, you didn't reverse, you rebounded. Why your body fights you here. After leaning down, your body is biased towards survival. That usually looks like hunger feels louder, cravings feel more intense, needs, unconscious movement drops, sleep can become lighter, stress tolerance decreases. So if you remove structure too early, your body does what it's designed to do. It drags you back to safe. Control has a definition. Control means you can eat more without spiraling. You can hold leanness without white knuckling. Your skill trend doesn't swing wildly, and your training output is stable. You don't need daily motivation to stay on track. If those aren't true, you're not in control yet. The only three levers that mattered. The only three levers you can pull are calories, movement, step 6 is cardio, and training output, volume/intensity. If you change all three at once, you create noise. Noise creates anxiety, anxiety creates overreaction, so I followed one rule, one lever at a time. Don't touch anything for a week. The first 7 days after finishing a cut or push phase, calories stay the same. Protein stays the same, step stays the same, training stays the same. Why? Because week 1 is not fat gain. Week 1 is mostly glycogen refilling, water retention going up, digestion volume, sodium changes. If you panic here, you ruin the process. Water weight isn't fat gain. Reality check. Here's the truth. Nobody explains. If you add carbs back in, the skill can jump really fast. That doesn't mean fat gain. That's glycogen storage, water binding, and a fuller gut content. So I tracked 7-day average, not daily emotions. If you don't understand this, you're overreacting yourself into a loop. The stability first framework. Before increasing calories, I wanted stability in 3 areas. 1. Skill trend is calm, no wild jumps week to week. Hunger is predictable, not consistent food noise. Training output is consistent, not random good/bad sessions. When those were stable, I earned the next increase. When I increased calories. The rule. I increased calories only when adherence had been real for 10 to 14 days, steps were consistent, weight trend wasn't climbing rapidly, hunger and recovery suggested I needed more fuel, not because I felt ready, because the data said it was time. How much I increased, the boring answer that works. Most guys rebound because they jump too fast. I increased slowly, 100 to 200 calories every 7 to 10 days, but only if average weight is stable. This does 2 critical things. Appetite adapts without chaos. The body stabilizes at each level. Slow feels frustrating, and that's why it works. Where those calories come from? Why carbs first? Most increases come from carbs because carbs improve training performance, refill glycogen, support sleep and recovery, and reduce cravings. Fats stay more stable. Why? Because fats are calorie dense and easy to overshoot without noticing. The protein doesn't move through. Protein stays fixed. Why? Because protein is your behavioral anchor. If protein drifts upwards and downwards with mood, everything becomes unstable. Hunger, cravings, adherence. So protein stayed boring and consistent. Training stayed boring on purpose. Most guys chase training here because they feel refreshed. They add volume, chase pumps, add sessions. That's a trap. I kept training nearly the same because it preserves feedback, it prevents inflammation spikes, it keeps recovery predictable. If you change training and food at the same time, you can't diagnose anything. The don't grow yet principle. This part is not about growing as fast as possible. It's about preparing your body to grow without fat gain. If you try to force muscle gain while your hunger and habits are unstable, the surplus becomes sloppy. You don't build more muscle, you build more body fat. The appetite SOP. What I did when hunger spiked. Hunger spikes didn't mean I need more food. It meant I need to troubleshoot. I checked in this order. Did I hit protein? Did I eat enough volume/fiber? So vegetables, fruits. Did I sleep enough? Was stress high? Did I undereat? Then oversnack. Fix the cause before chasing calories. The fiber rule. Missing piece. This is where a lot of guys miss. When calories rise, hunger can still be chaotic if fiber is low. So I had a simple rule. 1 to 2 servings of fruit plus vegetables daily minimum, and aim for consistent fiber, not perfection. Honestly, I have 1 to 2 servings of fruits and veggies with almost every meal if hunger is very high, but minimum 1 to 2 per day. Yeah, preferably even with every meal. Fiber stabilizes appetite, and stable appetite equals stable execution. The meat drop problem. Why you feel softer. A hidden reason people regain fat here is when calories increase, people subconsciously move less. Less walking, more sitting, less fidgeting. So I treated steps like a constant. Because if steps drop while calories rise, fat gains become inevitable. Step strategy during increases. I didn't raise calories and reduce steps. That's how you rebound. Steps stayed consistent until proven stability. If anything, I increased steps slightly if the skill tendons started climbing too quickly. Cardio. Keep it minimal. I didn't add cardio to earn food. Cardio stayed low and boring. If I used it, low intensity session, 15 to 30 minutes, never fatiguing. If cardio makes recovery worse, you're stealing from your training. The rate of gain guardrails. Here's the line I didn't cross. If skill trend increased too fast, I didn't panic. I used a simple rule. If average weekly gain is clearly accelerating, hold the calories for another 7 to 10 days before doing anything else. Holding is a tool. Most guys skip holding because they're impatient. What too fast actually means. You don't need to micro-calculate this. Just watch the obvious trend changes. Waist jumps quickly, weekly averages climb consistently without stabilizing, appetite becomes chaotic, and sleep worsens, training feels heavy and inflamed. When those show up, don't increase again. Stabilize first. Refeeds versus the process is important. A lot of guys confuse this with refeeds. This isn't one high day to feel better. This is systematically restoring intake while maintaining structure. Refeeds can help psychologically, but they don't replace a structured increase plan. The weekend damage rule. Most rebounds happens on the weekend. So I had a rule. If I wanted flexibility, I planned it by calorie banking. I didn't wing it and hope. Because winging it turns into extra liquid calories, extra snacks, portion doubling, Monday guilt. Planned flexibility keeps control. The most common self-sabotage here. Here is what I did for years. I'd make progress, then relax tracking, relax steps, relax structure, and I'd call it balance. But the truth was I hadn't earned autonomy yet. Autonomy comes from stability. The stability score, simple self-check. If you want that simple check, are these true most days? Protein hit, steps hit, training done, sleep reasonable, hunger manageable. If yes, you're stabilizing. If no, increasing calories won't fix the problem. It will amplify it. When you're ready to move forward, you'll know you're ready when hunger is quieter, food noise decreases, training performance is stable, weekly weight trend is calm, you can live normally without swinging off plan. That's when the build properly chapter actually works. Now keep in mind, for most people, the reverse is actually way more difficult than the cut itself, because you're still very hungry and you're allowed a little bit more. So the second you're allowed a little bit more, often your mind goes wild and thinks like, yes, more, more, more. And it's way more difficult to stick to. Also in the cut, especially at the end of the cut, you're seeing daily changes, new fibers. And here you start adding water weight, you get softer, your body composition actually looks a bit worse. So mentally, this part is way, way, way more difficult, but honestly, the most important part to set you up for a proper off season. A reverse is everything. The 5 rule that made this work. If you remember nothing else from this section, week 1, don't react. 1 lever at a time, 100 to 200 calories slowly, steps stay consistent, stabilize before increasing again, and that's how you stop losing momentum. Phase 3, the lean growth engine. How I build muscle without undoing all the work. What this phase actually is and isn't. This is not a bulk. It's not. Eating everything aside, chasing the scale, accepting fat gain as part of the process. This phase exists to answer one question. How do you add maximum muscle while staying visibly lean and in control? The core mistake I made before. For years, I treated growth like a permission to relax. Calories up, tracking loose, standard softer, and every time fat came with the muscle, which meant another long cut later. This phase exists so growth doesn't create future problem. And keep in mind, if you let yourself get too fat, your off season gets shorter as well because you need to cut for longer. When muscle gain takes a long time, you need to spend a long time in a calorie surplus. Why most bulks just turn into fat. This is the part nobody explains. When insulin sensitivity is low, your body is biased towards fat storage. So when you increase calories, muscle gain is capped, appetite gets aggressive, fat gain accelerates. That's why bulks feel good for a few weeks, and then suddenly you're softer, hungrier, and less confident. You think you need more food, but what you actually needed was a body that could handle the food you were already eating. That's why just eating more never worked for me. And it's why guys who skip the lean up phase and up speeding years in a bulk cut cycles never really move forward. Fix insulin sensitivity first and growth stops becoming a gamble. The growth consistent framework. Here's the mental model that changed everything. Muscle growth is limited by recovery capacity, training quality, and nutrient partitioning, not by how much food you can force down. So instead of asking, how much can I eat? I asked, how much can I recover from while staying lean? The lean bias rule. Every decision in this phase had a bias. Err on the side of staying lean. Why? Because insulin sensitivity is preserved, appetite stays predictable, training performance stays high, and future cuts are shorter and easier. Lean muscle is always easier to maintain than sloppy mass. Calories, the growth window. I didn't jump into a big surplus. I operated in a tight growing window, usually 200 to 300 calories above stream maintenance. If weight climbed fast, that wasn't good growth. It was wasted input. Why small surpluses work better long term. Large surplus increases fat storage, reduces insulin sensitivity, increases inflammation, and worsens recovery over time. Small surpluses favor muscle over fat, keep appetite calm, and allow longer growth phases. Slower growth equals more total muscle over the years. The rate of gain guardrails. I used the simple guardrails, not formulas. If waist increased noticeably, weekly weight jumps accelerated, pumps felt worse, not better. That wasn't muscle, that was overshooting. So I held calories steady until things stabilized. Training now has one job. In this phase, training's job is simple. Progressive tension over time. Not variety, not execution, not novelty. Progression is the signal. Now, one thing though, in this phase, the further we get into the phase, we can increase intensity and the volume a little bit more. So, for example, in the cut phase, we, for example, stick with lower amount of sets with good execution and good intensity, of course. For example, 2 working sets per exercise. And then, for example, what we can do is we can add off a back of set to some exercises that need muscle groups that need more attention. Or what we can do is here and there, once a week for one exercise, we can add a little bit of a drop set or a back of set for muscle groups that need a bit more focus. Progression hierarchy in order. I followed this rule. More reps at the same load, better control at the same reps, slightly more loads, additional sets only if recovery allowed it. If you skip steps, joints pay for it later. Why I stopped chasing PRs. Maxing out feels productive. It isn't. PR chasing increases injury risk, disrupts recovery, and shortens growth window. I focus on repeatable strength, not hero lifts. Volume landmarks, not junk volume. I didn't count sets obsessively. I watched for signals. Performance trending up, soreness resolving before next session, joints feeling stable. If volume requires stimulants and hype to survive, it was too much. Exercise selection discipline. I stopped rotating exercises consistently. I kept 2 to 3 main lifts per movement pattern, accessories that supported them. Why? Because muscle grows from repeated exposure to tension, not novelty. And if we change exercises or machines every session, we won't be able to track what we're actually making. Recovery became a growth variable. Recovery wasn't an afterthought. I watched sleep quality, resting heart rate, desire to train, joint feedback. If recovery dipped, I didn't push through. I adjusted volume first, not food. Mindset shifts. Growth requires restraints. This phase taught me patience. The discipline wasn't eating more. The discipline was not overeating when progress felt slow. That's where most guys fail. How I knew growth was working. Signs I looked for. Strength trending up slowly. Body composition stable. Pumps improving. Appetite calm. No urge to cut immediately. That's sustainable growth. The psychological trap of this phase. Here's the danger. When you're lean and growing, you start thinking, I can get away with more. That's when standards slip. So I kept the same structure, just slightly more fuel. Structure doesn't disappear just because results are good. The 5 rules that made lean growth work. If you remember nothing else, once small surplus beats big appetite. Progression over novelty, stay lean on purpose, and recovery is part of growth. Patient compounds muscle. And in this whole phase, what's super important is staying insulin sensitive during as long as possible. If you get it too fat, you're losing insulin sensitivity and you get into this cycle of putting on more body fat than muscle, which will ruin insulin sensitivity even worse. So insulin sensitivity is super important. Also something what I often utilize to keep insulin sensitivity super good in the diet is on training days eating a lot lower carbs than on training days eating a lot more carbs, and on rest days eating a lot lower carbs. So this also allows me to eat a little bit more calories on the training days when I actually need it, and lower calories on the rest days. So my average calories around the week are still the same. Let's say your normal daily calories would be 2,500. Now we make it 2,600 on the training days and then 2,300 on rest days, only with carbs. This kind of equalizes out. Still, the weekly calories are on average at 2,500, but we have more fuel on our training days where we need it. And also this improves insulin sensitivity because you give your body a little bit of a break. Now, phase 4, stage ready protocol. Even if you never step on stage, this is the mastery layer. What this phase really is. This phase isn't about bodybuilding. This phase is about precision under constraint. This is where you prove you can control your body at extremes. Structure holds even when variables tighten. Mindset doesn't crack under pressure. It's optional, but incredibly powerful. Why I included this in the phase at all? Most systems stop at looking good. This phase is about absolute consistency, mental toughness, executing when it's uncomfortable. Once you've done this, nothing else feels hard. The precision mindset. In this phase, margin for error shrinks, emotions run higher, details matters. So I stopped improvising completely. Everything was planned. Fat loss without chaos, at low body fat. Leaning down further requires tighter calorie control, higher protein, more consistent steps, better sleep hygiene. There was no room for guesswork. The energy budget mental model. At low body fat, recovery is limited. So I treated energy like a budget. Spend too much on training, recovery suffers. Spend too little on food, performance tanks. Every input had to justify itself. Training adjustments at low body fat. Training shifted to maintain strength, reduce injury risk, preserve muscle. Volume came down, execution quality went up. Intensity stayed, junk fatigue disappeared. Hunger management became strategic. I relied on meal timing, volume of foods, consistent routines, not willpower. Hunger unmanaged leads to loss of control. Mindset under pressure. This phase exposes weak mental habits fast. Things I had to remove is emotional attachment to the skill, daily validation seeking, catastrophizing small fluctuations. Precision requires emotional neutrality. The one job per phase rule. In this phase, the job was not growth, experimentation, optimization. The job was execution. No second guessing. Why this phase changes how you see everything. After doing this, normal dieting feels easy. Maintenance feels relaxed and structure feels freeing. You realize how much chaos you used to tolerate. The final realization. By the end of this process, I wasn't chasing motivation. I wasn't negotiating with myself. I had repeatable systems for cutting, growing, maintaining, and peaking. That's when fitness stopped being stressful and started being predictable. Now, the entire method collapsed. If you don't remember anything, this is it. Restore responsiveness, restore control, grow lean, and then master precision. That's why, that's the sequence. That's why it works, and that's how you get into the best shape of your life and never go back again. Now, why knowing all of this still isn't enough? If you watch this far, you're not lazy. You're not uninformed, and you're definitely not bad at fitness. At this point, you probably understand what needs to happen, why it hasn't worked before, where things usually fall apart, and that matters. But here's the honest truth. The part that most people don't like hearing. Understanding the system and executing it consistently in real life are two very different things. Most guys don't fail because they don't know what they do. They fail at the exact moments life gets chaotic, this week's motivation dips, the first stall, the first setback, or the first I'll deal with this later moment. That's where progress quietly dies. So, the next step. If you're done guessing, restarting, and feeling like your results don't match the work you put in, here's what I can do for you. I'll help you install the entire system from nutrition, training, recovery, adjustments, supplements, and hormone optimization in a way that fits your body, your schedule, and your goals. So that you can eliminate 10 to 20% of your body fat and build 5 to 10 pounds of lean muscle using insulin optimization and finally earn the respect from everybody around you without saying a word in less than 180 days, or you don't pay. No hype, no shortcuts, no just trust the process. Just a proven roadmap to your endgame physique that you're finally fucking proud of. Now, click the link below in the description, book a call, and we'll see if you're a good fit for the program. Now, on this call, we'll map out a personalized attack plan for exactly what you need to do over the next few months to achieve the transformation in the most efficient way possible. Now, quick disclaimer. If I'm not 100% certain I can help you to reach the end destination, then I will let you know before the call. Remember, 6 months from now will arrive either way. The only difference is whether you're still banging your head against the wall about why your progress isn't going the way you want, or finally living in a body that reflects the work you're willing to put in. Now make sure you subscribe, like the video, and I'll see you in the next one.